In 2020, Magic the Gathering printed some cards so strange, even their own designers fought about them. The last Magic Fest I went to in 2020 was GP New Jersey. There are not many things that can get me up early on a rainy Saturday morning, but the prospect of hanging out with friends, drafting, and being Magic adjacent all day is definitely one of those things. I loaded up some cards to sell, some sleeves, some boxes, my Pioneer deck, and I jumped into the passenger seat of my friend's car. Since all my friends are local in Connecticut, a New Jersey Magic Fest isn't that far to travel, and we hit the road. But there was a snag. Twitter started updating first, and then Reddit. I announced the news to our packed car. The event? It's at maximum capacity. Huh? What? What does that even mean? It means they're not even letting anyone in. No one can draft, at least. Not without the limited package, which is sold out. What? Should we just turn around? Has this ever happened before? We thought about it and decided to push on and try our luck. Internally, I wondered what it meant for that Magic Fest to be so far over capacity in an event center that could hold 5,000 people. I couldn't even picture 5,000 people in my mind. Was it the main event that was so popular? To be honest, I can't even remember now what that main event was. So no, it wasn't that. What I do remember, and what everyone remembers, was the mystery boosters. These weren't the mystery boosters that came out months later, the ones with various foils and a much more reasonable price tag, the ones that were promised to be printed to demand to support local game stores during a pandemic. These were the convention-exclusive boosters, and there was a lore and a hype around them that honestly had been the biggest thing that got me up and out of bed that morning. As a Magic player, my favorite format is Draft. Specifically, my favorite format is Chaos Draft, doing a draft with random packs, synergy and set design be damned, seeing cards from all across decades interact in ways they were definitely never intended to. In my mind, combined with 5 or 7 friends, that's the best experience Magic has to offer. So when I heard about the mystery boosters, I was excited. The set was massive, over 1,700 cards, easily one of the largest in Magic's history, which promised a lot of replayability and exactly the experience I was looking for. This was Wizards' sanctioned Chaos Draft, a different experience in every single booster. The possibilities were practically endless. More than that, though, there was something else, something that made this convention-exclusive edition special. Exclusive cards that had never appeared in any set before, and cards that were so strange and weird and hard to explain that they stuck with a half-designed look for the final product. One was in every single pack, imitating the stickered look that research and development uses when they design cards and play with them in-house to test them out. These cards were, to say the least, broken. The experienced Magic player's preferred term for way too good. There was no spoiler list, no master picture online with a list of every single one of these cards. They were discovered and they trickled out onto the internet organically, just like in the olden days. Every grainy photo was another piece of the puzzle. They technically had a black border, since they were a sticker printed onto a black bordered card. Not actually stickers, just designed to look that way. They referenced rules that had never been explained. They explored mechanics that were too weird to print in regular sets. They did things that other games had done for years, but that had never existed in Magic in any form. The response, predictably, was hype. If there was a single word to describe the Magic community, hyperbole wouldn't be too far off. Extreme opinions are common. The response was polarizing. Some people hated them, others loved them. Some worried about the legality and competitive commander, while casuals clearly embraced them as immediately and obviously fair game. Mark Rosewater, one of the head designers, even went on to say that he regretted the way the community had immediately accepted them as legal game pieces, saying that the different style was intended to push the public opinion more towards a gentleman's agreement, or a strange oddity that might only be busted out on rare occasion. He had printed, after all, not for constructed play, right on every single one of the cards. What he didn't realize, though, is that all Magic players hate to read the entire card. Instead, the Magic community accepted them as new cards with open arms, no different from any other new cards from a new set, which raised a lot of problems. Many of these cards exist in a space in between legal and illegal. In the past, silver borders have separated clearly weird and for fun cards from tournament and competitive cards. In this case, there was no border. It was a gray area. Were these cards legal in cube draft? Well, that was up to the owner of the cube. Was it legal in casual? The casuals considered the answer, and the answer was an overwhelming yes. Were they legal in Commander, one of the largest and most popular formats? They considered the answer too, and the answer was mostly, if it's fun. Thankfully, these cards are overwhelmingly fun. Riffs on classic and legendary rares like Time Walk and Black Lotus, planeswalkers with skills and abilities that made sense in the abstract, but that could probably never be printed on paper with the current rules. Cards that had been hinted about and mythologized for years were finally printed on paper, tongue-in-cheek. This was a set for highly established players, with inside jokes and lots of references, but it was also one of the most casual-friendly sets ever made. These cards were exciting, fun to read, and reminiscent of the sort of playground competition that many of us grew up on, making up and dreaming up our own cards. If Time Spiral, one of the older sets of Magic that had had a terrible reception and highly complex gameplay, was the dark side of nostalgia, I would argue that the Mystery Booster convention boxes are the light side. It's impossible to open a pack and not smile at cards from years and years ago in their original border and art. Cards are balanced and fun, regardless of their level of play. This set was never released on Magic Online either. This was something you had to experience in person. The gathering, the social element in this case, was what made it so magical. The additional event capacity began to leave right as we arrived. After all, their chances of playing were almost zero. While I could walk in, and I signed up for a mystery draft, I could only watch friends who had then already been waiting around for hours finally see their numbers called. My own draft never fired hours later when I was offered a refund. The smiles and laughter were obvious. The test cards were incredible, doing things I'd never seen before and recapturing what it felt like to bring a busted new rare card to your friend group for the first time. When one player had a playtest card on the battlefield, everyone else stopped their games to look over. But there was a dark side to the convention boosters too. At the first events, as players signed up for just $50, they would stand up with their product and just walk off to resell the rare packs for more on eBay or to vendors. The nature of Magic is that it is a trading card game, and if there's value to be had, Magic players will find it. Sealed, the packs had incredible value. You could pay $50 for far more than $100 of product, and before long, several players were trying to rinse and repeat as many times as they could. The judges came up with a solution that I've never seen anywhere else, or heard used anywhere else in the history of Magic. Their packs were exclusive to convention events, much less the boxes, which were only offered briefly to employees of Wizards of the Coast internally, and open and unsealed at one of several prize walls. Getting the sealed boxes wasn't something the average person could do or ever would. But the sealed packs began to trickle out of Magic Fests and events steadily until the faucet was finally turned off. Curious about scalpers and resellers, I watched what the judges did carefully, only to do a double take as the judges sliced open each pack before passing them out. With one cut, the resale value of each booster dropped to zero. The decision had been made for them. This was an open pack, and you should play with it. With that monetary anxiety removed, the mood quickly improved, and the players were able to experience the set as intended. When I left that overpacked event, I resolved that I would do as many mystery booster drafts as I could and try to get my hands on the product, no matter how hard it would be. Players began to trade stories of how the packs were predictably arranged within the boxes, and so judges began to shovel multiple boxes together to randomize the experience. For individual packs, buyers became suspicious, but the appeal still commanded a high price. Mapping was possible, but less of a worry, because in the words of one internet commentator, who even had the boxes to map? The boxes may as well not even exist. Then in March, the pandemic began in the United States. To 99% of Magic players, the chance to play with these cards never came. With the success of the Secret Layers, Wizards has been accused of printing money. This, though, was the opposite. Some people believe Wizards must have 100 secret palettes tucked away somewhere, waiting for conventions to exist again. But to tell the truth, I doubt it. From the dozen or so ex-Wizards employees that I've talked to, all of them mentioned that the boxes they had obtained were a limited-time, exclusive internal store offer, and not cheap. Some were given as gifts. None had more than one or two, even those that had a dozen copies of other so-called hard-to-find or rare sealed products. Others who had one talked about hoarding prize wall tickets, but even those boxes were cut open, vulnerable to the worst impulses of those who might map the packs and pull out those with the most expensive cards, leaving the rest. When conventions exist again, whenever that may be, there may be a number of flashback drafts. Drafts from sets that were never drafted in paper in North America, at least. The sales of those boxes were down from projections, and I know for a fact that Wizards will be desperate to sell that product. On top of that, Channel Fireball, one of the largest companies involved in Magic and the hosts and organizers of Magic Fest, seem to have switched to online events for the foreseeable future. Magic Fests have no players, no venue, and no timeline for when they might start back up again. This is a dark time for our game and our community. Since then, I've kept an eye on the convention mystery booster boxes printed in a year where conventions were cut short, and in many places, gatherings of 5 or more people were expressly forbidden. Not enough to have a draft, unless you use Zoom. On sales sites like TCG Player, the supply and data around the playtest cards is limited. Often a card will spike without explanation. When there are only 5 copies of something listed on the entire site, buyouts are easy. Some seem to have stuck, with several cards in the set far over $50 or $100. The cards are just cool, and the supply is not increasing anytime soon. In terms of print run, the only set that compares is Alpha, sold out in just days, but it may be even less than that. As for me, I'm okay with my carefully obtained box collecting some dust for as long as it takes to crack it open with some friends. That's what Magic's really all about. My Mystery Booster Box Convention Edition is not for sale.